So, going to look at the diagnostic criteria. Just going to talk you through it. I said earlier, these things would have to be long-term, persistent, pervasive. Now, this is the thing about a disorder. Again, I can't diagnose, so I'm just giving you my thoughts on it. This is how I view disorders. When you think of a disorder, regardless of what it is, it could be obsessive compulsive disorder, it could be an anxiety disorder. When you think of a disorder, you think of something that is long-term and pervasive, that is having a huge impact on someone's day-to-day functioning. It's having a huge impact on their relationships with other people, as well as with themselves. So it's having a negative impact in a lot of different areas. Again, has to be long-term, consistent, and pervasive. So the first one is a grandiose sense of self-importance. This is often associated, in fact, a lot of the criteria you'll find are largely focusing on grandiose narcissism. With covert narcissism, a lot of the grandiosity is internalized. It comes out differently, but a lot of it's internalized. They believe that they're very misunderstood. They believe that they are put upon. They believe that they are victimized. And the behavior you would see manifesting is like low mood, sense of unfairness, sense of helplessness, and things like that. But a grandiose sense of self-importance. So you see a lot of exaggeration. You see a lot of haughty behavior. You see a lot of one-upmanship, things like that. And they want to be recognized as being superior, as being more intelligent, being more affluent, being better skilled, whatever it is. The self-importance, it's the person who goes into the office, goes into the workplace, the factory, whatever it is, and they've convinced themselves, and they're trying to convince everyone else that they're the most important person there. It doesn't matter what the role is, they are the most important person there. If they left, the whole place would close. The boss, the manager, the owner, the CEO, whatever, the directors, all depend on them because they are so important. So there's a grandiose sense of self-importance. There's a preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. So again, going back to the delusional side, the rejection of reality, there's a lot of fantasies about how important they are, how special they are, how much everybody likes them, how competent they are. So there's a lot of fantasies. And again, this is part of that false sense of self. It's very, very fragile and very, very easily shattered, very easily bruised. They believe that they're special and unique. They can only be understood by or should associate with other high status people, special people. Which is why if you're ever in a discussion or in an argument with someone who's narcissistic and they're talking around in circles, it's illogical logic, it's circular reasoning, it's nonsensical, and you're trying to point out, look, what is it you're actually trying to say here? It's like they put it onto you that there's something wrong with you for not understanding. You're of low intelligence or something. They could be making up words, throwing out sound bites, just snippets they've heard, things that they don't even know what they mean, but they sound intelligent. And you're asking them about, well, what are you actually talking about? Again, it's all about the other person doesn't understand. When it comes to you find this in workplaces as well. What you often find is, unless they feel rejected and there's some kind of envy and bitterness, what you might find is them trying to associate with the people at the top. Not even just their manager, but people above their manager. They're trying to mix in those kind of circles. At social gatherings, what you might find is, as they're getting to know people, it's like they're looking for the most powerful or the most influential person in the room, and they're zeroing in on them to try to ingratiate themselves into their company. You might find as well, sometimes you get conversations and they might name drop important people, famous people they've met, whatever. We have each other's phone numbers, and we went on holiday once together and things like that. And so there's a lot of name dropping. They believe that because they're special, they only should be mixing with special people. There's requiring excessive admiration. Now, this would come into things like the validation and the collusion. They need others to actually believe that they are special. They are amazing. They are either the funniest person in the room. Everybody has to laugh. They are the most beautiful person, the most handsome person. So everyone has to lust after them. They could be the most put upon person in the room. So everybody has to sympathize with them. Everybody has to pity them. Everyone has to, feel sorry for them. They need that constant attention, that constant admiration. They can be very exploitative. This would be quite the Machiavellian, the duplicitousness, the manipulation, and so on. They can take advantage of others just to achieve their own ends. A lot of times, again, it depends on the person where they are on that spectrum, but a lot of times they look at people more as a resource, a thing the thing they might benefit from. Going back to the example of being at a social gathering, they could be there, they could be getting introduced to people. If the person they're introduced to, if they don't think they're of any value to them, they're of no importance, they have nothing to offer them, nothing they could use, they might just say hello, and that's it, go off and then talk to someone else. They're of no value. They could be demanding and demanding and demanding, but as soon as that person has nothing left, they're exhausted, there's no money left, whatever it is, that's it, they're just discarded. They're of no further value, so they'll just leave them. They might go back to them at some other point in the future if they need them for something else, but other than that, no, they're done. They don't need that person anymore. Number 7, there's the lack of empathy, and this is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and the needs of others. Now, empathy is one of those things that it's not just being able to recognize what others are thinking and feeling. It's not just being able to read facial expressions. It's not just being able to imagine what something must feel like for someone else. Empathy helps people have insight and to self-reflect. It helps them to think over their actions, the impacts of their actions, and to think ahead, to maybe learn not to behave in such a way again. With that lack of empathy, narcissistic people don't really have that. A lot of their relationships tend to be very surface level. Their conversations tend to be very superficial. Yes, they are all about themselves, but very rarely would they go in depth. About this, about that, about the other thing, about the impact of this, what they learned from it, what it meant to them. They could maybe tell you what happened or a version of what happened, but not necessarily explain it. The other thing about that lack of insight, that lack of depth is when it comes to the rage, the temper tantrums, the depression, things like that, the things that the narcissistic people do, what you sometimes see is like an emotional dysregulation. They know they're annoyed. They know they're hurt. They know they're in pain. They know all of these sorts of things, but they don't necessarily know why. They don't necessarily know what to do with it or how to address it. That feeling is just far too uncomfortable. They can't own it, so it gets thrown out. A lot of it just gets dumped onto other people. It's because of you. It's because you were 2 minutes late. It's because you wore that hat. It's because, whatever it was. It's nothing to do with their own stuff. They're just feeling something they don't like, and they don't necessarily understand why. They don't understand someone telling them no. I'm telling you no because I don't have the time. I don't have the resources. That's disappointed them, but they don't necessarily understand. As far as they're concerned, they've been treated badly. They've been treated unfairly because they've been told no. They don't grasp that whatever it was, that person is not capable. They're not in that place. And they might not be saying no forever. They're just saying no in this moment. Number 8 is being envious of others, believing others are envious of them. Now, I mentioned this earlier. If others aren't envious of them, they should be. They believe they should be. Sometimes, this is the guy I used to know, I worked with him years ago. Anybody who didn't like the way he behaved, he would accuse them of being envious and being jealous. No, they weren't. They were just frustrated and bloody annoyed. But that belief that people are envious or should be envious. So whenever they get called out for bad behavior, whatever, it's because of how that person feels about me rather than what I've been doing. They can be very highly envious of other people. As I mentioned earlier, yeah, even just a good day. Even just a good day, even, getting a good haircut or something, whatever it is, they can be very envious. And the envy, I think, often brings up the competitive nature in them. It's not in the criteria, but I think the competitive side to narcissism it's a very huge sign. Everything is a competition to them. When they're feeling envy, if you have a nicer car, a better job, there's something unfair there. Rather than just acknowledge, maybe I need to work a bit harder, maybe I'm nothing wrong with the car I have, maybe that's fine. Rather than that, they will try to find some way to play this game of one-upmanship. Okay, you might have a better car than me, but I've got a pen. Whatever it is, it's always trying to outdo somebody. If someone is in pain, someone is in misery, someone is in agony, well, that's not as bad as when you hear what happened to me. It's always about competition. Envy, I think, is one of the things that triggers the competitive side in them. Lastly, number 9, shows arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes. And again, very common with grandiose narcissism. The biggest person in the room, they arrive with a fanfare. They have their own theme tune. A lot of arrogant, haughty behaviors. Something doesn't work their way. Someone says no, right? I'm not having that. That's not an answer, and they just keep on going. There can be very domineering. When they do something and it doesn't work out the way they would hope, what they were doing, they thought was a good idea, was the right idea. But what they can't do is they can't accept that it was a wrong idea, it was the bad idea. Maybe they should have asked someone else. Maybe they should have done this. Maybe there was a better way of doing it. Instead, it's always going to be something or someone else's fault. Even if they did something and they are being held to account for it, their motivations are misunderstood. No one gets it the way they do. They were maybe seeing the bigger picture. They were seeing this grand thing, and the other people are just looking at this small bit that went wrong. That's the diagnostic criteria. Out of that 9, only 5 have to be met. But they would have to be met all the time, okay? That being said, there can be different combinations. As I say, they might meet 1, 3, and 5, 6 and 9, whatever. They might meet them all, but not all day and every day. So when we talk about narcissism, we're not necessarily talking about a one-size-fits-all.